There are so many people on this planet who have no idea where they come from. I'm one of them. I can't go back beyond a couple of generations. It is quite sad when you consider that so many of us have no idea where we come from. Like, that to me was the bigger point, that there are so many people on this planet who have no idea where they come from. I'm one of them. I can't go back beyond a couple of generations. And the reason for that is because of war. It's because of slavery. It's because of large human trafficking efforts that take place. Why on earth is the world trying to convince me that this woman is suddenly Black? Like, they just decided she was Black because she's running and because there is evidence, it is true, that her father grew up in Jamaica. Your race does not magically change because of where you grow up, okay? If I grow up in Sweden, I don't get to suddenly say I'm white, okay? And what I discovered was quite startling. Now, I'll ask you, when did you first get the idea that Kamala was Black? Well, you'll say, yeah, when she kind of started running with Joe Biden. And that claim really came from Kamala herself. When they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, they understood that Kamala Harris published a book in 2019 called The Truth That We Hold. And presumably the book was filled with truth that she was holding. I had a look through it and I saw this picture of her and her grandmother, clearly a Black looking grandmother, on page 282 in the photograph section. It reads, as you can see, visiting my paternal grandmother, Beryl, in Jamaica. Also on that same page, there's another photo of her. Again, you can see it's black and white. I'm not quite sure why it is black and white, but it says, when I was 10 months old, I visited Spanish Town, Jamaica. This is me with my mother and my paternal grandfather, Oscar Joseph. And now this guy looks mixed. He looks Asian of some description, but you can see the idea here is that she's definitely trying to introduce, in a manner of photos, things that make her race look more complicated. So I just decided to investigate that.
What we're gonna do right here is go back.
There are so many people on this planet who have no idea where they come from. I'm one of them. I can't go back beyond a couple of generations. And immediately things got weird, very weird. First and foremost, because it was very easy for me to determine via just a light search online that Beryl, her alleged paternal grandmother that you just saw, died 4 years before Kamala was born in 1960. So last night we decided to continue our research to see if we could find birth certificates and marriage certificates and death certificates, which could further signify those points. And indeed it did. It also raised even more questions about her genealogy, so let's go through those. Here is the birth certificate for her paternal grandmother. This is Kamala's paternal grandmother, Beryl. Okay, now you can see on this birth certificate that Beryl is spelled with an I. It's Beryl Magdalene. And you can see the reason why we know this is the correct Beryl is because the mother is listed as Iris Finnegan. Later on, we're going to show you in the book, she names Iris Finnegan as her great grandmother. So that would be Beryl's mother. So we have the right woman. Also, formerly, her maiden name is Allen. That is true. It also says here that she's born in October of 1917 in St. Anne. That's the St. Anne parish of Jamaica. And again, you can see it says that it is signed by Iris Finnegan. Very clearly, this is the woman that we are looking for. This is Kamala's grandmother, alleged grandmother, Beryl. It's also interesting, by the way, that it lists her great-grandmother as a seamstress because Donald Harris, Kamala's father, wrote in a 2020 piece called Reflections of a Jamaican Father, quote, Miss Iris, that again would be his grandmother, was the mother of 8 children, too, was the sweetest and gentlest person one could meet, but underneath it was a tough farming woman who ran the cane farm at Thatch Walk, near Annan Town, jointly owned with her husband, Mr. Christie. Okay, that's weird. So you're telling me that she ran a farm because on that birth certificate it says that actually Iris was a seamstress, but whatever. Let's just park that aside for a second and stick with Beryl, this woman who died before Kamala was born, okay? Because I was feeling pretty certain that not too many people were going to be named Beryl and be born in the St. Anne parish of Jamaica in 1917 to a mother named Iris Finnegan, I felt confident that we could find a little bit more data, and in fact we did, okay? First, we stumbled across Beryl's marriage certificate. Okay, so you can see that right here. And now the name spelling has changed. You have Beryl Finnegan spelled with a Y in the same way that Kamala spells it. And it lists their married date as 1944. Again, you can see the parish that is listed is St. Anne Parish. This is where every piece of Beryl's life seems to take place. It reads here that her calling is a barmaid. And something that jumped out at me was the fact that she's married to someone, as you can see, named Lawford Newland. Okay, so Beryl apparently was married more than once because Lawford Newland is not Donald Harris's father, but Beryl is his mother.
The first mistake that Candace Owens makes is that she claims that Beryl died in 1960, based on this death registration here. If true, she says, that would mean that Kamala Harris is lying about this photo, which shows her with her grandmother Beryl in 1990. But here's the thing. Harris's grandmother didn't die in 1960. She died in 1995. This is the correct death registration. We know that this one is the correct one for several reasons. First and foremost is the fact that the Beryl on this registration is named Beryl Finnegan, which was the grandmother's last name, whereas the Beryl on this one is named Beryl Christie. Now, the reason why Candace got confused is because Harris's grandmother Beryl had Christie as a middle name. But the form asks for the full name. I think it's very unlikely that they would put the first and middle name rather than the first and last name. Also, this Beryl died in 1960 at the age of 39, meaning that she was born in 1921, whereas this Beryl died in 1995 at the age of 81, meaning that she was born in 1914. That's a pretty big difference that can be settled very easily by looking at Grandma Beryl's birth certificate. Even Candace Owen admits that this is the correct birth certificate for Grandma Beryl.
Here is the birth certificate for her paternal grandmother. This is Kamala's paternal grandmother, Beryl. Okay, now you can see on this birth certificate that Beryl is spelled with an I. It's Beryl Magdalene. And you can see the reason why we know this is the correct Beryl is because the mother is listed as Iris Finnegan.
Even Candace Owen admits that this is the correct birth certificate for Grandma Beryl. At first glance, it seems to indicate that the birth was in 1917. But that 7 could also be a 4, which would make it 1914, fitting perfectly with what we'd expect based on the correct death certificate. But there's more. Candace makes a big deal over this name here, Douglas Finnegan, the person who reported the death. She says, we don't know of any Douglas Finnegan in the family. Well, that may be, but her last name was in fact Finnegan. So it's not hard to imagine that there was some nephew or cousin out there named Douglas Finnegan who was in charge of reporting the death. In contrast, this one lists Muriel Murray. We don't know of any family members with the last name Murray. So that one makes even less sense. Finally, there's the fact that this Beryl died in St. Anne Parish, which is where Grandma Beryl was known to have lived her entire life. Whereas this one has her being born in St. Anne, but dying in Kingston. Now, the second mistake that Candace Owen makes is that she claims, or at least strongly insinuates, that Donald Harris's real mother is actually Vioris Cambridge, and that the woman in this photo is just the help that Kamala was passing off as her grandmother in order to seem more black. This is where things start to get really ridiculous, because Vioris was born in 1927 and Donald in 1938. So are we to believe that Vioris had Donald when she was only 11? Oh wait, I get it. She wants to see Donald Harris's birth certificate, because obviously he's lying. Gee, that sounds familiar.
It's rare politicians actually admit mistakes. You've admitted you made mistakes in the past.
I have.
Well, you and I talked about President Obama and the whole birth certificate thing.
I didn't say it was a mistake. I just said I don't want to talk about it.
No, I'm asking you now, do you accept that President Obama was born in the United States,
No,
is not Muslim.
I really don't know. I mean,
You don't know.
I don't know. I don't know why he wouldn't release his records. But, you know, honestly, I don't want to get into it. He came up with this thing all of a sudden miraculously. Remember this one thing. I'm only going to get one thing because I'm about jobs, the economy, and I'm about the military and taking care of our vets.
But you still don't know.
No, let me just tell you something. Do you know that Hillary Clinton was a birther? She wanted those records and fought like hell. People forgot. Do you know that John McCain was a birther, wanted those records? They couldn't get the records. Hillary failed. John McCain failed. Trump was able to get him to give something. I don't know what the hell it was, but it doesn't matter because I'm off that subject. I'm about jobs. I'm about the military. I'm about doing the right thing for this country. I want to make our country great again.
It is quite sad when you consider that so many of us have no idea where we come from. Like that, to me, was the bigger point, that there are so many people on this planet who have no idea where they come from. I'm one of them. I can't go back beyond a couple of generations. Can't go back beyond a couple of generations. Can't go back beyond a couple of generations.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, Beryl, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.